How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the potting shed, and today I've got a repotting video for you, more specifically repotting this beautiful Calathea Orbifolia. Now some of you long-time viewers may recognize this. I bought this back about 18 months ago, something like that, and it has been sitting in pride of place in my downstairs living room with a nice pot to go with it. I really like this pot. This is one of my most favorite pots. It just looks like a pineapple. It's got a great effect and it's nice bowl shape. Really like it. But the issue is it's a relatively small pot, this. Let me try and get it out. It's a relatively small pot and it's been in there for about 18 months. I don't think it's pot bound, but recently it's been looking a little sad. As you can see, the leaves are drooping a little bit. It's not looking very happy, and I've noticed the soil's been drying out quite quickly. And this is a growing plant. I bought it, my God, I'm sorry about the lighting in here, guys. The sun is streaming through the window and it's messing around with the light balance of the camera. I apologize if it goes light and dark. We'll work our way through it. So yeah, so basically I'm looking at it thinking, okay, it's probably not pot bound. It would normally be all right, but it's a small pot. And I think a Calathea, especially Orbifolia, they really do like the moisture. If they dry out, they properly sulk. And as you can see, I'm getting more of these browning leaf tips. I was doing really well with this. The first 12 months, it was looking amazing. Virtually no browning to any of the leaves. I was very proud of myself because this is a particularly tricky plant to keep. I would definitely put it on the medium scale of difficulty, just purely because you have to get the humidity and the moisture just right. The issue is I got an attack of the fungus gnats, unfortunately, and this one had to go into quarantine. This one got it, and which meant I had to put it in one of my porches, and at that time of year it was getting cold. It was a bit too cold for it, really. It didn't like it. And look at this one. This leaf really caught it and got very brown, and since then it hasn't really been happy, I must admit. So I'm going to try and change it up a little bit, give it some fresh new compost and give it something with a little bit more moisture retention, so it can stay a little bit more moist for longer. It doesn't want to be sitting in wetness. As always with these things, you have to get the balance just right. But that's what I'm planning to do. Unfortunately, it's not going to be able to stay in this lovely pot, but I'll find another plant for it for sure. And I've bought a bigger pot, so let me show you that. I wanted to keep the same sort of colour hues because I like the combination of the Orbifolia colour, leaf colour, with that particular pot colour. So I've gone for this, which is just a bigger version, very similar colours, and just a much bigger pot. Let me see if I can compare the two for you. So don't drop it, Andy. As you can see, much bigger. Yeah, can't really see, but yeah, it's a much bigger pot, and that will give it a lot more space, firstly, to grow into. Oh, come in. It will give it a lot more space to grow into, and it will give it also more soil, which means that soil should stay a little bit more moist for longer. That is the plan anyway. So what I need is another pot to go inside here, obviously. Now, I always try and reuse pots if possible. I don't like buying plastic if I possibly can. So I've got a ton of pots that I've used and kept over the years under my potting bench here, and I really try and reuse them as possible. I've got all different sizes, so I really would recommend that to you guys if you're into the hobby of houseplant growing and collecting and that sort of thing. Then if you've got the space, I really would recommend just keeping your old pots, because you'll buy things, you'll change, you'll repot, you'll take it out of the grower's pot and then put it into a nice decorative one. So you end up accumulating these things, and if you can get a couple of each sizes and different colors, it's really going to help you be able to reuse your plastic. And I think that's something that we can all do to sort of cut down the plastic waste. That's certainly something I try and do as much as possible. So let's have a quick look under here and see what I can find. I should have something about that size. That might do it. I want to try and have a black one as well if possible, because it's like the most unobtrusive colour. I think you see it less. You're always going to see the rim, so a black one sort of blends in a bit better. Let me see. Oh, look. First time. That is absolutely perfect. Can you see that? That is totally flush. And yeah, that's stopping a reasonable amount short. Probably stopping about ½ an inch short, maybe a centimetre or so short of the bottom of the pot. So there's a little bit of room there, but that's not a bad thing, because what it means is you can give it a good water in the pot, and any excess water will just drain through into that last ½ an inch and keep the excess water at the bottom, and that way it won't stay soggy if it gets too much water. If you use a pot which doesn't have drainage, if you just use this outer pot, for example, you can do that. I have a few house plants like that, but you have to be a lot more careful with your watering, and don't give it too much, because it will just sink to the bottom and stay there, and you'll end up with a bit of a quagmire at the bottom of your pot, which is not good for your plants. So just bear that in mind. But that I'm really pleased with. As you can see, that you will not see that at all. Once the soil and the plant's in there, you will basically not see that. Very pleased with that. And first time as well. Right. So why don't we go over to the potting bench and you'll get a better view, okay? Let's go. Alrighty, so we've got our Orbifolia here, and we've got the bigger pot behind it. Hopefully you'll get a reasonable view of what's going on. Put that there, you can see that. So as for the soil, what I'm going to do is, like I said, I want some water retention in this particular mix, and so I'm going to tweak it a little bit. Down here under the bench, I've got a sack of John Innes number 3. This soil comes in different grades. The different numbers refer to the different soil types that you're getting in it, and number 3 is basically very much like a soil, so it's like almost like dirt that you get in the ground. So if you imagine like a houseplant mix is quite sort of fluffy and light, this is the other end of the scale where it's quite dense and really moisture retaining. If you poured water into this alone, then it would sit there like a bog. It would just sit there and hold on to it. So I use that to put into a mix that I want to have a little bit of moisture retention, but also I don't want it to sit like a bog as well. So to add to that, I'm going to put in some perlite, which looks like this in the UK. It's I'm sure you've seen it in different soils. It's basically just white, fluffy white granules, and what that does is adds a little bit more drainage, so it will help the more heavier stuff. It will break it up, and so it doesn't all clag together, and also help get more oxygen around the roots, which is a good thing. And on top of that, I'm going to add some of my bonsai mix as well, because that is very much more free draining, and there's a lot more molar clay and various different pieces of very small pieces of bark and stuff like that, which is really good for drainage, but also has a little bit of moisture retention as well. So add all those three things together, what you should get is a free draining mix with a reasonable amount of moisture retention. So it seems like they would cancel themselves out, but what you want is a little bit of moisture retention, but not too much, and that's how you add them all together, and you should get a happy medium. That's my plan anyway. So I've just got that in my little tin bucket, and I've just been mixing it up. That should do us. Looks a bit like that. Don't know why I'm showing you, it just looks like dirt, doesn't it? But that's it all mixed up together. Just what am I going to do? I don't think I'm going to put anything in the bottom. No, I'm not going to put anything in the bottom. I'm just going to let it drain freely. Obviously it's got let me take this out. It's got holes in the bottom of the pot. Now you can put crocks in the bottom, which is just broken up pieces of ceramic pot or clay pot, which sort of half covers the holes and things like that, and also creates its own little sort of bit of drainage at the bottom. But we've got the space at the bottom of this outer pot anyway, so we don't really need to do that. So I'm just going to pour it straight in. Now, a good tip when you're repotting, if you get the old pot, so this is going to be the shape. This is going to be the shape of the root ball that you're taking out. So if you get the old pot and offer it up there, then you can fill the soil to the point where you know it's going to be. So that will give you a rough idea, so you don't overfill it and have to take it out basically. Put that in again. Yep, that's a little bit proud of the pot, but the soil level is lower, so I'm just looking at the soil level in the pot. That's about right. Okay, now I've left this one a little bit dry for the last couple of days, which is why it's wilting a little bit more than usual. Apart from it being a little bit unhappy in here, I've also let it dry out a bit, just because it's going to be a little bit easier to take out of the pot. If it's too moist, you know, it's the soil is going to be sort of holding on to the roots, and you know, you might damage the roots as you take it out. So I like to let it dry out just for a couple of days. I find it easier to repot like that. So when you take it out, let me do it this way so you can see, just gripping the pot as I go around, flexing the pot, that will loosen the soil around the edges of the pot, so it should come away easier. What you want to do is minimize the disturbance of the roots at this stage, give it an easier time as possible, so nice and gentle. Hopefully when it's this dry, you should just be able to grip the pot and carefully, let's do it this way around, Andy, grip the pot, and it should, holding on to the base of the stems so you don't damage too much, and it should just come away, and it is. It's just coming away there. All right. So I'm carefully removing the roots. So this is quite interesting. I don't know if you can see this. It has grown new roots in the last year. I don't know how much you'll be able to see, but all of this around the bottom are the new roots. There's still a lot of soil hanging onto it, but as you can see, the soil is hanging onto it, which means it's got a bit too claggy in here, which may be the reason why it's not happy. But also what's interesting is you can still see the shape of the old pot. Don't know how much you can see that. So you've got the old pot shape and then new roots. So the new roots have only been growing from directly from the bottom here, and the very fine roots have just stayed and not come out. So this has been quite useful to see this. So we might be able to tease more of the old, I'm making a mess. I might be able to tease some more of the old roots from the side out, so we can stimulate it to grow out as well as down, because just a few bits growing down is sub-ideal. So let's do that now. I mean, it has grown, which is great, and I can see the tubers that these Calathea grow, which is important as well. Don't forget, this is a young plant. I bought it very cheaply, about £10. A big mature Orbifolia like this would be £50, maybe $70, something like that. Probably vary in prices between different countries, but I wanted to buy a young one firstly, because if it didn't like where it lived in my house, then if I managed to kill it, I wouldn't be losing too much money. And secondly, I wanted the challenge of growing a young one into a mature plant. So, you know, it's not going to rocket away. It takes time. It needs to develop the root structure before it can develop what's on top. So it has been developing more roots, and I'm glad to see that. It's only been 18 months or so, and it has got bigger in terms of roots. So roots are just as important, if not more, than what you see on this side. So you get healthy roots, you can have a much healthier plant top side. So I'm not too disappointed with what I'm seeing, but it does show that it needs to be repotted. It's quite dry, the roots, and it's just gone into a big thick ball, so we need to address that. So I'm just literally, this is my bonsai fork that I use when I'm repotting my bonsai, if you've ever watched any of those videos. And I use it just like a miniature rake. I'm just going to carefully rake away the soil, which firstly takes away the soil, but also will tease away the soil from the roots and expose the roots. Just digging it in here, and what that is doing is taking the soil out of the side of the root ball here, and that's slowly working the soil out. Sorry, you probably can't see this very well, I apologize. Just sticking it in carefully, and this is just breaking up the big solid mass, which is what we want. If a few of the roots are damaged, it's not too bad if there's just a few, because the damaged roots will stimulate new root growth, which is what we want as well. So that's fine. We just have to be careful when we're doing it, because what I said earlier is we want to encourage them away from this pattern that it's grown in the pot. There's a good chance it would have been pot bound in its previous nursery pot when it was at the grower. It would have been in there for quite some time, and that's formed this tight habit. And when I repotted it last time, when I first got it, because I just got it, I didn't want to disturb the roots too much. I literally took it out of that pot, put it in a slightly bigger one, and so I can see now that it just has not, it was so tightly packed, it has not come out of that shape. So it's a good opportunity now that I've identified an issue, and we can correct it. So that's what we're doing here. So next time we repot this, hopefully we'll be able to see a lot more root mass along the side as well as the bottom. That would be good to see. But it's all coming away very nicely because it's dry. It is actually, the soil is dropping away, which means that the roots are still staying intact but coming away from the mass. It's exactly what we want, but this is particularly dry. I think because it's so tightly packed, the water wasn't penetrating through the root ball. It was just running out the sides, I think, and sitting in the bottom, which is probably why we've got active root growth at the bottom and not in the center, because the only real water it was getting was at the bottom. So that's my idea of what's been happening. So we can address that. You know, it's a bit like a detective game sometimes with these plants. You've got to figure out what's going on. I knew it wasn't happy. When you get a bit of experience, you can see a plant's not happy. It's sometimes if it's wilting, it doesn't just mean it's not had enough water, because you can water it. I water my plants regularly, so if they're still wilting, something else is going on. And it did seem like it was dry every time I came back to it. It was dry sooner than it should have been, which says to me the soil isn't right. And under investigation we can see the soil is not right and the roots are too compacted. So we're doing a good thing here today, guys. Hopefully it will really appreciate the effort we're going to, and we can get it into a nice big mature Orbifolia, which to me, one of the nicest looking house plants right now, in my opinion. Everyone's different, but let me see if I can tease the bottom as well. The bottom's still very tight also. Yeah, I remember now, it was a while back, but I remember I repotted it as soon as I got it, and I didn't want to disturb it too much, so I literally just put it in a bigger pot. So these roots were not touched at all, quite rightly, because if you've just bought the plant, it's already under a bit of stress, having been moved from different places, from the grower into the place where it's going to be sold, and then, you know, obviously it would have been on a truck for quite some time, and then from there to where you bought it to your house, and it just gets a lot of stress. So you don't want to stress it anymore by messing around with the roots. It may just knock it too much. So it's not ideal to repot it straight away unless there's a real need for it. But this is a lot better now. See if I can get you a close-up. Hopefully you'll be able to see the roots have been teased out now, rather than looking like a compact shape of a pot. All the roots are now pointing in various different directions, and they will be able to grow in all of the different directions now. I think that's enough. That's good. Right, because this root ball is so dry, it's a lot drier than I expected, what I'm going to do is soak this before I put it in to the pot, because you know, when I water it again, it will be difficult to totally get everything absolutely saturated. It could do with soaking for like a little while. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put it back in its old pot, fill that with water and give it some time. So I'm going to do that now. Alrighty, with a bit of magical editing, that's been sat there for a few minutes just to really soak up as much water as it can. That's nicely soaked, so I can put it in the new pot now. Also, soaking it like this just rinses out some more of the finer soil away from the roots as well, which is a good opportunity whilst we're doing it. It means all we've got is a nice open root ball when it goes in. There we go. So that is all done. Our Calathea Orbifolia now has a lot more space to grow into, and once it's had a bit of time to rest and recuperate, I think it will be a lot happier in this pot. It's got a lot more opportunity for those roots to grow out properly into some soil, you know, rather than sit in that tight, compact root ball, and I really don't think it was probably getting enough water in that situation. So it's been a good opportunity to really give this some help, and I think we'll see a lot of difference in this plant over the next coming few weeks and months. So that's it for this one. I hope it's been helpful and insightful to you. It's sometimes useful to see when things aren't quite right, but it gives you the opportunity to see for yourself what you need to be observant for when repotting your own plants. So hopefully that's been helpful. Please give it a thumbs up if it has, and subscribe if you're new around here for more houseplant videos coming along every single week. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.